welcome to day 2 of the Hamburg Mobile Summit Live. My name is Julia. I'm your host today. And the advantage of having virtual events is that on day 2, everyone is fresh and rested because, probably you did not party hard last night. I hope that you behaved good at the networking event last night. Anyways, we have a very productive day today. A lot of great speakers are going to present. And to name a few, Rovio, Boombeat, App Annie, Cyber Games, and Crazy Labs, a lot of great sessions. Do not go away for a long time. Please follow us and please chat with us in the chat next to the streaming window on the WN Hub. We will be happy to see your feedback or questions for speakers. And by the way, we are ready to start with the first speaker, and it's going to be Ajipal, the CEO of Smaato. Hello, how are you?
I'm good, Julia. Thank you. I definitely did not party hard. I can tell you that.
Well, you know what? You can do it right now. As far as I understand, right now it's just past midnight. That's what you said.
Yes, it is.
Where are you based?
I'm based 20 minutes, I would say, southeast of San Francisco, so in the Bay Area, California.
So I think the plan can be that you make your presentation and then you go partying. How about that?
No, no problem. I think well, they did open up California as of yesterday, but I think I'll stick to partying in my backyard for now.
Well, we'll be happy to join you.
Sure.
All right, let's start with the business, and over to you. We are ready for your presentation.
Great. Thank you, Julia. Um, Hello, everyone. I'll keep the morning intro theme going, like Senator Carson, which is by starting by saying "Moin Moin." Hope everyone is happy, healthy, and at home versus partying outside. I wish also we were doing this in person, but these are the cards we are dealt. But I'm optimistic that we're almost there, and I hope to see many of you in the coming months, hopefully before 2020 comes to an end. And of course, thanks to the Hamburg Mobile Summit team, and especially Ofer, for bringing the mobile community as well as the digital advertising community together. My name is, of course, as mentioned, Ajit Palpanu. I am the CEO of Smaato. What's my job? I basically, I call myself a traffic cop inside the organization, and I route all the traffic inside the org, if you will. Um, Starting from, I would say, the topic, right? Future of ad tech, privacy, compliance, and dawn of OTT. So, of course, we wanted to share our thoughts on why we as a company have not only doubled down on advertising, technology especially, but also we believe mobile being the most important screen is giving us all kind of a competitive edge, if you will, in the digital advertising as a market. Uh, and I'm sure I'm probably not the first person in these, I guess in a day and a quarter at this point to say that ad tech industry has had to navigate through quite a few challenges, and to name some of those, which is GDPR, IDFA, CCPA here in California, and many more to come across the globe. However, I think the biggest one we were all dealing with in the last 16 months, if you will, was something we could have never predicted. It is the global pandemic. And with that said, you know, that's all repetitive. I'm sure you've heard this before. I think I might definitely be the first one to say that ad tech is not at all different from farming. And I think many of my colleagues who know, I have some relationship to farming side of the world. And I'll start with a small story on farming. Not sure how many people here in the audience know that California produces almost 80% of world's supply of almonds. In the early 2000s, the largest buyers of almonds was Germany. I'm not sure if any of you also knew that. However, today the largest buyer of almonds is China and India. Surprisingly, the fact is Germany's consumption did not go down. Germany's consumption actually for almonds has gone up. However, the consumption globally, from a scale perspective, from China and India has dramatically gone up. And that is what has led to them being kind of in the number one, number two spot. Of course, why is this related? I think very similar to how digital advertising spend continues to be, I would say, getting diversified, but at the same time scaling and growing and more dollars flowing into the ecosystem. One other fact or one other statement I like to make. Let's see, slides are now moving. Okay. Many of you are probably wondering what this is. I think almonds as an industry has a pretty bad name when it comes to irrigation, when it comes to water consumption. And similarly, I think advertising also has a bad reputation when it comes to tracking of folks. And then most importantly, the most common one we all have heard in some sort of get togethers, which is pop up ads. Uh, what no one knows is the fact about water is from how irrigation was without technology. Similarly, how advertising has been without technology as well, or how advertising has been getting transformed with the technology and becoming impactful and influential driver towards capturing larger budgets. What you're seeing here in this picture, just for many of you, if you care, this is the new way how irrigation happens in the farming community, if you will. So no more open irrigation like the way it was in the 70s. It is very controlled irrigation, and then a lot of this is controlled with technology, down to your ability to even turn the water on and off based on many signals, and all of this being able to be done remotely via some sort of wireless connectivity. Coming back to advertising, right? What happened inside our advertising ecosystem? Technology has obviously kind of made many things better, but also along the way, advertising really got carried away and focused heavily on tracking. What we will call today in this conversation is the selection effect. What is the selection effect? Selection effect is when users are being I would say users are being tracked and targeted selectively based on their past behaviors, which leads to many forms of personally identifiable information usage for the purposes of conversions and clicks and some sort of app downloads. Advertising is supposed to be, if many of us remember, similar to what we have seen inside Mad Men style, which is very fun. And it's an opportunity for brands and advertisers to build lasting relationships with consumers. So what I will talk about today is kind of three things, if you will, and why those three things, and what our thoughts are on those three things. But more importantly, I think towards the end, I will also kind of share what excites us and why we think we are in kind of the most important not the upswing, but I would say a slightly much better future in regards to what we have seen from a digital advertising point of view. So point number one, data and privacy. So how do we as an industry adapt to these changes when two key elements that used to be mutually exclusive are now forever tied together, which is data and privacy, right? More than ever, I think we're facing headwinds that are driven by privacy and compliance. This is also fueled by using personal data, which violated user privacy and also did not impact audience experiences in the best fashion. How so? For example, you look at a product on Nordstrom's website today. Nordstrom is a retailer. And then tomorrow you will see the same product in your ads, which is in the form of retargeting or some sort of behavioral targeting. Unfortunately, that was kind of, did not go very well with many folks, right? So it plays a role in allowing us to make decisions, but also it plays a role impacting us where we actually get tuned out of the advertising and the ads we end up seeing on our screens. And I think the goal here is how we can objectively, based on facts, patterns, and statistical insights, make advertising better. When we look at raw data, it really translates into a lot of noise. However, advertising is all about the audiences. Audiences is who the consumers are, which data can also help you build some sort of probabilistic models and couple that with artificial intelligence that can help you analyze the behaviors with all these limited tracking habits we all have to get used to. And then finally, how some of us in the technology arena can build products and platforms that can group them into some sort of targetable cohorts. Earlier, we talked about going away from the selection effect, right? And then this new approach, we will call this the advertising effect, which leaves a very lasting impact on our users. And then also it leads to actions that result in some sort of positive experiences. I'll go to point number two, which is experiences and experiences which lead to some sort of consumer insights. So first and foremost, I think let's start with what we know about the consumer. We are consumers. We should know what do we want as consumers. Most likely it's free stuff, or at least cheaper stuff, and a good experience getting that stuff, right? What does that mean? We want it fast. We want things to be done right, accurately. And then more importantly, the quality of the things we're buying, quality of the description of what we buy online, and the quality of the experience, how that stuff gets delivered to us without having to give up anything, let alone our personal data. I think that's the most important part. When the majority of this stuff we want is bought online these days, I think some of those areas or violations are happening, which is not helping us as consumers probably feel comfortable in regards to digital advertising in arena. And I think now it's changing significantly as the IDFA kind of changes have been rolled out. When we think about the user experience, it can be on multiple devices, it can be delivered in multiple environments, and in many different formats as well as sizes and screens. This omni-channel approach allows both um, advertisers and publishers, just as an example, to, again, I'm using a CTV slash OTT example, to create a playlist of ads they can stitch into an ad pod. If we were talking about, specifically just on CTV, not sure any of you have realized that when we are talking about anything CTV, we no longer are selling ads. We're actually selling commercials, very similar to how TV used to operate. If you recall, the best commercials are not meant to be based on some sort of tracking mechanism. They're meant to be memorable with some sort of targeting that relates to you based on many other data points that is not personally identifiable information. In digital, the data we have gives us all the controls to create this experience. Unfortunately, we kind of lost that focus. We went down the path of tracking the user and focusing on the experience by tying the user's private information, right? Uh, However, that experience isn't based on who the user is, but it's also based on the content the user is looking at and in the context the user is looking at that content. To take this a step further, we have more control and focus than ever, but because we have the ability to collect all this data. And when it comes to getting insights into the consumer mindset and implementing these advertising effects, as I explained, versus the selection effect, which is strictly targeting based on IDs, that is not a consumer insight, it is a consumer privacy violation. And then I think kind of moving on to the third point, which is OTT slash CTV. Coming back to selling the commercials, right? Which I'm sure you all agree sounds much cooler than selling ads. Let's talk about why OTT is gaining adoption faster and faster than any other format, if you will. We know quality and privacy restrictions have actually limited both advertisers and publishers' ability to accurately track consumer behavior. So I think industry as a whole, with of course a lot of great help for many, I would say the industry experts, we have come together and to kind of find the solutions to maintain this ecosystem. And I think one of those solutions has been much more reactive to some of these Apple announcements, but I think it's all heading in the right direction. And I will not bore you with those solutions. I think everybody has probably read 15 blog posts each when it comes to SK ad networks, when it comes to some sort of unified IDs or anything else that everybody wants to do. However, it is important to share some thoughts that why we think the dawn of OTT is currently in progress, and we look at why this is working in two possible reasons. So reason number one, right? We have no reliance on the old ID system. What is that? This is OTT and CTV advertising from day one has not relied on device identifiers, on IP addresses, GPS coordinates, or any other personally identifiable information. Why? Because it's a commercial on TV is also sold in a similar fashion on the relevancy of the commercial. So how does it work on traditional TV, right? It's usually the commercial you're seeing is targeted around the content you might be watching, the screen you might be on, and then more importantly, context of what you are watching at what stage. And then similarly, the OTT adoption in the online world, on the digital world, has also kind of focused around that type of targeting versus targeting users based on some sort of personally identifiable information. And then more importantly, focusing on the content, the channels, and the context. Reason number two, what role has mobile played? So as mobile adoption also matured along the way in the last, I would say, 5 to 10 plus years, if you will, our screen sizes have gotten bigger, our resolutions have gotten better, and then our connection speeds have dramatically improved, which has led to our ability to consume content and consume more quality content on these screens that we walk around with. And then I think all the OTT slash CTV players, they really, realized that opportunity and they looked at that opportunity. It all started with the Netflixes of the world, but I think now it's kind of gone into the path of many other players in the market. They have one of the first things they did is they built their apps. And because they knew mobile is one of the areas where majority of this media is being consumed, especially when you look at the world outside of some of the major markets like the US. And this shift of spend also followed the consumer behavior, and you can call it pre-COVID slash post-COVID. I think post-COVID, this shift got really, I would say, expedited, where the spend from TV started shifting towards mobile slash any other screens that is not a fixed screen inside your house or your living room, if you will. And then not to mention, even on that screen, the media that's being consumed, it's being consumed via some sort of a digital mechanism versus the traditional cable mechanism. And I think this is just the beginning, and I strongly believe that this is going to lead into many opportunities for all of us in the space. What you're looking at here is kind of summary of what we think, how advertising is going to change. I think pre-COVID, everything was all about a selection effect. And I'll give another small example to help everyone understand what we mean by selection effect. It's actually, these two words are something that I learned about from another, I would say, visionary in the space. His name is Rashad Tobaccoala. He talks about the selection effect and advertising effect quite a bit. So selection effect was that if you have downloaded a game, if you have downloaded an app, all of a sudden you are the person who is highly targeted based on this behavior of you downloading the given game or given app. And I think what did it focus on? It always focused on conversions, it focused on clicks, and it focused on some sort of downloads. How do you kind of simply define this? The simple definition is you were targeting, or we were all targeting users based on some sort of ID, and we were retargeting those who met the qualifying criteria based on some sort of past behavior. I think post-COVID, things have changed, and I think things continue changing. Some of this has been a push by the technology players, like the Apples of the world, but I think some of this is also has been the regulations and things that have been created by governments around the globe, which I think leads to advertising effect. And I think it's very important to understand that piece, which is advertising effect is very much related to experiences. What does an experience mean, right? Advertising that is based on an experience which leaves a lasting impact on the user, and it leads to an action. None of that has to do with let's identify the user. It has more to do with this: what is the user looking at, and how's my advertising going to relate to the user based on the content and the context. I think, of course, it's very important to kind of mention that as we're all attending this Hamburg Mobile Summit, And the most important thing to remember is we're all in mobile, which puts us in the best possible position to capitalize on this shift of traditional media spend going in the direction of digital. All the challenges and opportunities that I shared when it comes to data and privacy, when it comes to consumer insights and OTT, are all best suited to be the growth opportunities for all of us in the mobile ecosystem. And I think that's the best thing. But we, as individuals, we as companies, we as organizations, we have been in mobile. We probably were the least spoiled when it comes to our ability to target and retarget, unless you're in the gaming sector, which is how we capture the advertising spend. And I think with this limited ad tracking now becoming a much larger space in regards to the number of audiences that fall into that bucket, I believe that's opening up opportunities, that's opening up innovation for us to solve some of these traditional problems. I'll go back to this picture to kind of wrap this up. So similar to the almonds industry, right? Our challenges with the environment. So three things: the global warming, which I mean is the environment, the type of food we eat, which is organic foods versus processed foods, and then more importantly, the sustainability of the farming. If you look at the picture on the left, this is how irrigation used to happen, and I think a lot of people seem to talk about this sort of irrigation. What they do not talk about is the sustainable method of farming that's currently happening in the ecosystem. And not to mention, all of this led to abundant supply of almonds. And what did that lead to? Not more of the marzipan chocolates, which I think is probably one of the largest almond buyers, but also it led to somebody going out and figuring out there's this thing called almond milk. And today, if you look at it, 20% of the dairy consumption has shifted from traditional milk to almond milk. And I think a lot of that innovation was, I would say, figured out when there's an abundant supply of almonds available. Similarly, I think in our ecosystem, when there's an abundant supply of audiences, abundant supply of behaviors that are happening online, I think that's going to lead to a lot of innovation. And then more importantly, it's going to lead to new methods of monetization, which is not tied to any sort of consumer behaviors or any sort of personally identifiable information. So in closing, I would say, let us use this opportunity to build a better bridge for the advertisers into the consumer's mindset and focus on the real advertising effect, which is only born during this pandemic and will lead to new revenue opportunities for all of us. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very insightful. Let me ask you one question. You told us about, how we should think about the context to connect with the people who see the ads and stuff like that. You know that especially in gaming right now, a big role is ad creatives play a very big role. So most user acquisition campaigns now depend on the quality of the creatives. And as I can see now, the bar is getting higher and higher and higher. And sometimes these ad creatives can be treated, as cartoons even, they are state of art sometimes. Do you see similar tendency in other similar, not industries even, I mean, not just in gaming, but in other industries that use ad creatives?
Sure. Great question. And I'm glad you went into the other direction, because I was worried that I will probably not have as much insights on gaming as many of our other partners who are strictly in gaming. Absolutely. So what we are seeing is the creative plays a much important role that leads to a conversion, that leads to a click, that leads to a behavior that we are expecting the consumer or the user to have. And a lot of this is, I think if you might recall, probably 5, 6, 10 years ago, dynamic creatives were launched, and I think a lot of companies try to do dynamic creatives, and I think a lot of those dynamic creatives were based on signals that you could pass and you could modify things inside those creatives. Similarly, how things happen based on, in the US we call the DMAs, right? And or the Nielsen DMAs, if you will, which is the metro areas, if you will. And in those metro areas, a lot of the commercials you see on TV are targeted, but they're not targeted to individuals. They're targeted to buckets of people that belong into those areas, if you will. And I think similarly, the ad and the experience of that ad and the type of creative that's being shown plays a very important role. Another example I will use is so there's a heat wave going across. Last week was on the East Coast. This week it's on the West Coast here in the US. And I think if that is the case, the type of creatives that were being shown to people last week in the East Coast are probably not the same creatives advertisers will want to show people this week. But however, they might be able to leverage some of those creatives this week in the West Coast versus the East Coast. So to answer your question, yes, we absolutely see a lot of impact. I think we're also seeing a lot of results, positive results in regards to when clients are doing a lot of A/B testing. If I had to put a number to it, I think the impact we are seeing when the creative options are more is somewhere in the ballpark of up to 40% ROI.
Okay, that's a great example with the heat. I think it shows, how it really works. All right, thank you very much. It was really interesting. Well, after you party, as we agreed, you can join Dublin Hub in the morning to see the attendees of the Hamburg Mobile Summit and maybe network with them. Thank you so much, and have a good night, I guess.
Thank you very much. And I wish everyone a wonderful day, and then a day full of tons of knowledge from all the other panelists, if you will.
Perfect. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you.